The group Babymonster kicked off their 2025 tour, now in the United States. Today we are going to react to a song from their performance in New Jersey. It's the song Dream, which talks about self-awareness of a person when they are going through a series of problems in their life, so they are understanding this context, trying to reflect on it and their capabilities and limitations, and trying to overcome it. So let's see how the girls delivered this on stage, live, during the New Jersey performance of this tour.
Doubting myself again. Can't find a light in the dark.
So this song starts with Chiquita. I heard some versions of this performance from some cameras that were closer and others further away. And it's noticeable how this song is demanding in terms of vocal range, especially for the low notes. For the high notes, not so much. But it's really a very low range. And in the case of Chiquita and Farida, they struggled to hit it. Their voices practically disappear in the microphone, and the playback vocal predominates, which is the one we hear, singing along with the singer on stage. And it's necessary in the case of pop singers because they dance along, so you need the support, so that sometimes the singer stops singing, or sings as little as possible while dancing. But here, even though they are standing still, Chiquita struggled, but in general throughout this show, and I watched the whole show, I noticed that Chiquita was a bit more reserved, singing a bit less. Maybe some issue, which is normal. That's what happens on tour, as we discussed in their other videos.
Doubting myself again. Can't find a light in the dark. At times, finding myself in the rain, trying to get out of the pain. Oh, they come too far.
So here was Rora. Forgive me if I confuse the names of some of them. I'm still trying to memorize them. But Rora did better with the low notes. But her voice, when she moved from the low range to the mid-range, she even lost a bit of control, pushing her voice too much, but coming back. Sometimes she has this issue, especially in these melodies, because the volume of the low notes in the extreme low range is usually lower, less audible, just like with falsetto. And when you return to a more comfortable range, you even come with more volume. But she did better than Chiquita in this beginning.
Trying to get out of the pain. Oh, they come too far. I made a promise I'd never. Get stronger. Get stronger. A little longer. Get stronger.
So here, when Ian's voice comes in, it was a short segment, and you can notice the extreme difference in volume compared to Chiquita, and also compared to Rora, though slightly less, and compared to Farida. So her volume is strong. Although she is not, as I mentioned in her reaction, I believe she is not a contralto, but rather a mezzo-soprano. And her voice naturally has volume in this mid to low range, and she showcases all the characteristics of her timbre. And here we see Farida, just like Chiquita. You can barely hear her actual voice, you mostly hear the playback vocal. Because it's too low for her, she must be a soprano. It's almost certain. And That quality of hers, especially in the mid-range, is not being heard here.
A little longer, getting stronger.
And you can notice that the song, not just hers but all the girls that they choose to perform solo, they are much more comfortable. In terms of technical demands, they probably stay in more mid-range regions. So, we notice their vocal quality because it's much more relaxed. But here in group songs, there are indeed higher or lower demands, depending on the melody. And here the ones who handle the low range the most are Hyeon and Raymai, mainly. Rora does well, and Asa also has a quite low voice and performs well. So here we see Raymai transitioning from the mid-range to the high range, adding a bit more ornamentation, doing a yodel. She didn't use much vibrato. Maybe she could have. And the interpretation of the song was in a low range, because it's a deep sadness. This low range conveys that idea of great depth precisely. And now, the song. The cymbals from the drums did that. So something changed, indicating a shift in the context of the song. What's happening emotionally within the context of the song. And then, Raymai moved to a higher range in terms of notes and also to a fuller and richer register. It's interesting to see this contrast when placing Raymai or a Hyeon in this part to come in stronger. So from a deep lamentation, a certain defeat, you move to someone who is rising again. It fits very well with the context of the song. So it's really this characteristic of the person that looked up, stood up, and is overcoming some problem. It's their own reflection and their own defeat that are being conquered. So they placed Raymai and Hyeon precisely to contrast with those high-pitched voices that did the low notes. And that's interesting. The fact of placing voices that are from sopranos, who excel in the high range to sing the low notes, and in the high range, because it's really a mid to high range that was done by Raymai and Hyeon. If you place these voices that are lower, this contrast is very interesting within the interpretation, but the sopranos end up suffering because of this. And Hyeon has all her characteristics, always bringing aggressiveness, power, and strength, also creating this contrast.
Just who I was born to be. I'm waking up in my dream. I get with colors in the eyes. That's the crew kicking all the wise. Cause I tell who wants right. I'll see you later, bye. Keep it 101 and I'm winning, I'm feeling, I'm getting, I'm selling, I'm slimming. Stuff in the sky with infinite. Ignition to just how I picture it.
Ruka and Asa. I heard, even in Love Maybe, where I ended up not mentioning them in this reaction, neither Ruka nor Asa, and I forgot about Rora too. But I listened to Love Maybe from this. Both the one from Seoul and the current one, I paid close attention to their singing voices, and they are very beautiful voices too. I was impressed with how they sing. There's as much volume as in the rap, and even more volume than Farida and Chiquita, because they must already be contraltos or mezzos too. So they really have power in the low range. And this shows in the rap because in rap, at times you end up singing in a more melodic way. So it seems their voices are more mid to low range, from mezzos or contraltos probably. But they are very interesting voices too. In fact, I'll soon publish a reaction that I did to Asa from that first performance of theirs, in black and white. That's on YG's channel. So here, Ahayan and Chiquita. Chiquita, I really noticed her in this show, with her voice, more subdued compared to the playback vocal, at least in these group performances. I need to watch the solos to see how she did in her solo. I watched all the group ones. This happens, it's normal. Depending on the show, you'll have fluctuations and a series of issues as I mentioned in previous videos. And Ahayan, walking here, also reduced her own volume a bit. In fact, she reduces it because she is singing with Chiquita, so apparently she reduces it to avoid overpowering, since Chiquita has a higher pitched voice. Here they are in the mid to low range. So the voice already fades a bit, and Ahayan also held back in this interpretation, and that's very interesting. So Raymai performed here, and you can notice how her low range is really dominant. I'm not sure, but I think she's also a mezzo, because she has a lot of volume in the low range, and also a lot of volume in the high range, and her high notes also come out full-bodied. Ayan's would come out full-bodied, although she goes for a full and very rich voice, even in the high notes. But Rami's is more rounded, she can open up more, and make the syllables more open, opening up all the registers that she usually does, unlike Ahayan. So her voice doesn't have as many harmonics and is a more rounded voice, although also projected, as we've already seen in this mid-range here, which is a characteristic of all the girls. Watch the other reactions I did for each of them, because I always explain this characteristic of YG, of placing the voice in this cheek and nose region. This cheek voice, as I vulgarly called it. But we see how dominant her voice is, just like Ayan's. It's very beautiful. The contrast between Raymai and Rora. Rora is a contralto, with a low voice but a voice that is darkened and velvety, and very rounded. It's a very projected voice. So, you see Raymai, who has a voice that, although rounded, it's not as much as Rora's. Raymai has the characteristic of having a more vocal voice, a voice more projected forward in the mouth. And regarding Rora, Rora has a voice that is more upward, just like Farida. So Rora's voice, although both have a vocal range, low notes of contraltos or mezzos, they have this timbre characteristic that is distinct, which brings a lot of beauty and allows for an interpretation of the lyrics that is much richer, because you have 7 voices. All these timbre differences allow you to bring this richness and variety into a melody that is simple. So, Ahayan, Raymai, and Rora sang the same melody, and you can clearly notice the difference in their timbres, especially between Raymai, who was already in a range, we could say from high to extreme high, where she used open belting in her mixed voice. So this entire upper region resonated with a lot of volume, with the harmonics and all her characteristics. And her voice here, in this higher range, sounded very similar to Ian's. And we see Rora singing the same melody, but with a voice that is very high, sweet, and darkened compared to Ahayan and Raymai. A more velvety and darker voice, with fewer harmonics than the other two, especially compared to Ahayan. Same note, same melodic range, and relatively similar voices. Within this range issue, whether they are sopranos or contraltos, it's very rich, and it's great to have multiple vocalists. Very interesting. Did you understand the difference? Same melodic line, but very distinct timbres, and with techniques that are also different, because the register openings are also different. Chiquita went first, followed by Ahayan, but Ahayan went higher. And you can also notice this difference, especially in Chiquita's volume compared to Ahayan and compared to the other 3 girls, Rora, Raymai, and Ahayan. Chiquita's voice is closer to Rora's, in terms of projection, being a voice that is much more directed upward than forward into the mask, more projected. This is a characteristic of Farida, Chiquita, and Rora. So these are differences in resonance, in where the voice is primarily placed. So, Raymai and Ahayan, much more in the mask, with very open belting, voices with more metallic tones and more harmonics. Rora, Farida, and Chiquita have voices that are a bit more vertical and placed in the palate. It's that voice I talk about that is thrown into the palate and flows, and it's very rounded, with fewer harmonics, less metallic tone, darker and more velvety. The difference is very beautiful. Chiquita's ending is very beautiful. She stayed in her mid-range, and it was a short phrase, but it was where she usually delivers with great quality. I wish the melody were longer. And the difference in her volume compared to the others, those super high notes full of power from a high-end and Raymai. Then she came in with a short phrase to close it. A very beautiful stage performance. Live and with a band, simply perfect. The quality of Babymonster is really high from all the girls. Impeccable diaphragmatic support from all of them. It's unbelievable. When they dance, they still struggle to maintain that support. It's still not a support like, for example, a Michael Jackson, a Beyoncé, or a Whitney Houston, the divas, and the great American stars. While dancing, they use support, a reinforced diaphragmatic support, that allows them to dance without their voice wavering, or at least wavering very little. They will still learn this in the future because diaphragmatic support takes 10 years of work. It will take a long time. But they are doing well, and I watched the entire show, but I need to watch their solos. But that's it. Congratulations to Babymonster. The work is going very well, and we will see their evolution until the end of the year. They have performances scheduled until October or November. I don't know if there will be more. And in the future, I repeat, the best shows will happen later on. So if you like this reaction video, leave your like below and your comment. Subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. And also consider making a financial contribution through the Super Thanks button or the PayPal link pinned in the first comment. Okay, see you later.